एक मिनट, ये सर कैसे इसको प्रेस कर दिया, फिर से करो। अच्छा हाँ, पीछे से एक पॉइंट। अच्छा यहाँ से ठीक। Good afternoon, friends. We are here for this current affairs lecture. We'll be starting, we have arranged 4 to 5 topics for the day. We'll be starting from the very famous Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict that is currently going on. Armenia-Azerbaijan conflict is having historical foundations in World War I and World War II. What the news is, in July 2020, Armenia and Azerbaijan military forces came into conflict with each other on the issue of Nagorno-Karabakh region, that is the region of conflict between the two countries. However, it escalated into a full-scale military conflict and both sides used conventional weapons. Even Armenia has accused Azerbaijan of using Israeli drones for precision attacks. And both sides have faced military and civilian casualties. Let's analyze the evolution of the conflict as to how this conflict has evolved. Okay, this region, this is the, this region is called the Nagorno-Karabakh region, for which the conflict is going on. This is Armenia, Azerbaijan, Russia, Georgia, Turkey. This part in Armenia is governed by Azerbaijan. Yeah, that is an anomaly. Although it's a part, like territorially it's a part of Armenia, but still it is governed by Azerbaijan. It is an Azerbaijanian territory. Likewise, this region, which actually lies in Azerbaijan, is governed by Armenia. Fine. This region is governed by Armenia, but it lies in Azerbaijanian territory. Now the conflict is for this region. This is called Nagorno-Karabakh region. This whole region is strategically very important. Why it is strategically important? For Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan, the main export or the main trade of Azerbaijan is energy export in the sector of oil and gas. And all these pipelines going to whole of the Europe pass through this region. Fine. Due to which this place becomes a point of very crucial strategic importance. What does Armenia claim? Armenia claims that this region is historically theirs because the Armenian population or the demography of Armenia primarily consists of ethnic Armenians. Armenia is primarily a Christian country. They are ethnic Christians who, after the World War I, migrated to most of the Christians from Armenia, and this region, actually this was a part of Anatolia. Like prior to the World War I, this was part of Anatolia or larger Turkey. After the World War I and the collapse of the Caliph and the authority of Turkey, this region declared themselves independent. Similarly, Azerbaijan was actually governed by Russia in the north and Persia down this, Iran in the south. After World War I, in 1918, both these countries became free. Fine, because this Armenia became free because of the fall of Turkey, and after the World War I, this country, Azerbaijan, also declared themselves as a free country. Most of the world as we see today has either evolved after World War I or World War II. Europe's map has basically been evolved after World War II as we see today. Many countries did not actually exist prior to World War II. Fine. Now this region primarily consists of ethnic Armenians. Armenians are Christians, ethnic Christians. Azerbaijan is a country that is dominated by Muslims. And this conflict is ethnic, strategic, and political conflict. Ethnic because Armenia claims its ethnic right of Armenians to reside in this place because they claim that historically they have been here. whereas Azerbaijan claims this to be their own territory. It has also historical ramifications because after 1918, when both countries became free, after World War I, Soviet bloc of United States of Soviet Russia evolved. Like many countries, this Georgia and other countries like modern countries with Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Kazakhstan, all these countries were Soviet countries. Okay, and these countries lived quite peacefully till 1991, 92. Because after this the Soviet Union collapsed, and after the collapse of Soviet Union, all these nations which were part of Soviet bloc declared themselves independent. They started declaring themselves independent. Fine. Now, after this, these countries, Azerbaijan and Armenia, declared themselves independent in 1991. Both countries declared themselves independent in 1991. What happened was that this region went into conflict. These both countries laid a claim on this. Take. After that, USSR left this region politically to be governed by Azerbaijan. Okay, but from 1991 to 1994, what happened? There was a conflict. There was an ethnic cleansing of this whole region. Why? This region was autonomous region as governed by Azerbaijan, but it had an independent republic kind of thing with its own parliament. Fine. But what happened was, this region primarily consisted of ethnic Armenians, due to which Armenian forces invaded this region, and ethnic migration of Muslims from this region to Azerbaijan started. Fine. From 1991 to 1994. After that, this region this region now dominated by Armenia. Previously it was all the territory of Azerbaijan. Now these recent escalations, these are just to change the status quo. Both countries want to change the status quo, because you can see that this point and these points, these are also the regions of conflict. This point lies in Armenia, but it is governed by Azerbaijani forces. Similarly, this also, and this lies in Azerbaijan, but it is governed by Armenian forces. Okay, so there has been constant conflict and constant tussle between both of the countries, and the geopolitics of the Central Asia and West Asia has fueled it, and at times helped both countries in mitigating the conflict. Fine. Okay. Evolution of Armenia. Prior to World War I, Armenia, a region in Anatolia, was dominated by ethnic Christians, okay, and was a part of Ottoman Empire. But after World War I, what happened? Ottoman Empire collapsed and Armenia declared themselves independent. Now we have a timeline, brief timeline. We can see 1915 to 1917. What happened? As Ottoman Empire entered into the World War I, fine. What started was, Turkey was going to lose the war. Around 1916 and 1917, Turkey started losing the war, due to which the Turkey officials, the officials of the Ottoman Empire who were in that region in Armenia, started holding the power. Like, they started holding power into themselves, and they started this ethnic cleansing, due to which most of the Armenians migrated to Syria. They migrated to Syria, and they are like Syrian Christians as we know them today. Fine. Okay. In 1918 में, both these countries, basically Azerbaijan and Armenia, both declared themselves independent. Fine. In 1992, Armenia is incorporated into Soviet Union. As we said, even Azerbaijan got incorporated into Soviet Union. 1989. In 1985, USSR had a president who was who started the policy of Petroiska, Petroiska and Glasnost. These are two policies started by Gorbachev. He started the policy of opening up the USSR economy and starting inducing the transparency in the system. Fine. Due to which all these, due to his policies, basically Soviet Union collapsed. In 1989, the conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh region. The region we are talking about is Nagorno-Karabakh region. Fine. In 1994, from 1991 to 1994, from 1991 to 94, there was a constant conflict. There was a constant conflict between both these countries. Fine. And in this conflict, over 600,000 Armenians and Azerbaijani people got displaced. Fine. Like the conflicts today going on in Yemen and Syria, and that has led to a massive displacement of people to Europe, and that has been affecting the politics of Europe and Middle East. Fine. Similarly, USSR, or basically Russia, after the collapse of USSR, Russia brokered a deal, peace deal, which however could not, it has been violated by both the countries, like India and Pakistan have violated their ceasefire more than often. Similarly, both the countries have violated their ceasefire more than often. Okay? In 1991, Armenia secedes from Soviet Union. Okay? In 1991, Armenia secedes from Soviet Union, and after that, from 1991 to 1994, there was a conflict between both the countries. Remembering the maps of both these countries is very important because they touch many countries, and see, remembering the map is very important because if there comes a question in UPSC exam or any exam for the matter, they'll ask mostly about the map and which countries touch which one. Like Georgia touches Armenia. Georgia touches Armenia. Russia does not touch Armenia. Azerbaijan does touch Russia, and Azerbaijan also touches Iran from here also and here. Okay, Azerbaijan, this is the territory of Azerbaijan, and it touches Iran and Turkey also. Fine. Okay. Now, this whole what is important is Georgia touches Azerbaijan and Armenia, both these countries. Russia touches Azerbaijan. Fine. Turkey touches Armenia, and Turkey also touches Azerbaijan. This is very important. This very small point. Okay. This very small point of contact between Turkey and Azerbaijan. Turkey and Azerbaijan both touch each other. This map is very important. You should always remember this. Now we should focus on evolution of Azerbaijan. In 1828, there was a Turkmenchi treaty between Russia and Persia that divided this whole Azerbaijanian region into two parts, north and south. North was to be governed by Russia and south was to be governed by Persia. Fine. Then in 1918, this independent after World War I, what happened? Azerbaijan also declared itself independent as Armenia declared itself independent after 1918. Fine. And after that, there was a minor conflict between both of these countries on the very same issue of Nagorno-Karabakh region, the region we are talking about. Fine. But both of these countries got incorporated into USSR. What was USSR? USSR was a block of countries who followed communist government. Okay, they were independent republics. They had their own parliaments also. But many of the policies were common to all the countries. Fine. But after the collapse of, similarly, like in case of Armenia, this Azerbaijan also, there was a conflict in 1988 because of the starting of dissolution of USSR. Okay, USSR started dissolution around 1987-98 after the policies of Gorbachev. He was a Russian president. Okay, president of USSR basically. He was a Russian. And after that, this after the collapse of USSR in 1991, both of these countries declared themselves independent, and this conflict of 1991 to 1994 took place. Okay? And a lot of migration, a lot of ethnic cleansing of basically Azerbaijanis took place, because Azerbaijan was, this whole region Nagorno-Karabakh was a region dominated by ethnic Armenians. Okay? So they started attacking them, and the displacement of Azerbaijanians took place, and they were like displaced to which region? Armenia. Okay, and it can be termed as ethnic cleansing, right? They were ethnically cleansed from this whole region, Nagorno-Karabakh region. However, Russia meditated a ceasefire, but it has been violated more than often. Right? जैसे इंडिया एंड पाकिस्तान के बीच में जो सीज फायर है, दैट हैज बीन ऑफन वायलेटेड, वो नाम का ही सीज फायर है, करेक्ट. Nagorno-Karabakh region is internationally recognized as the region belonging to Azerbaijan. In international law, it is recognized as a part of Azerbaijan. Fine. But as I said, it has been dominated by ethnic Armenians. And why is it important to Azerbaijan? Because around the 90% of export, basically trade of, 90% of trade of Azerbaijan is dominated by oil and gas export. All this oil and gas export goes to where? Europe. Fine. Armenia, however, consider the region as historically theirs, historical claim, okay? Historically there as, because it has always been dominated by ethnic Armenians since the time of Ottoman Empire, and they thus lay claim on this, okay? But still, Nagorno-Karabakh region, as we are talking about, is semi-autonomous region. It is a semi-autonomous kind of region that has its own legislature, okay? And but it is mostly governed by Azerbaijan, okay? If you have any questions, you can put that in the comment box, and I'll be taking it at the end of the lecture. Fine. In the late 90s, after the introduction of Gorbachev's policies of glasnost and petroika, glasnost is a Russian term. Glasnost is a Russian term. It means openness. Okay. Region has been under perpetual conflict, and the violence between the Armenia and the Azerbaijan. This region has been under a perpetual conflict. Okay. Because of all this ethnic and political and strategic tensions. Fine. After the breakdown of Soviet Union, the regional parliament actually voted themselves to be a part of Armenia. Okay, and this is the point of conflict. This regional parliament voted themselves to be a part of Armenia. However, it were forced to become the part of Azerbaijan. And since then, from 1991, the conflict has been going on continuously till now. There are also like 4 resolutions on the conflict mediation in United Nations also. 874, 822, 884 and 853. These are basic facts, you don't need to remember it. Okay, not important from the point of view of exam. However, the kind of exams, the kind of questions UPSC is asking these days, you can expect anything. Okay, fine. Now, what's the geopolitics? Because this whole conflict has been meddled by the countries surrounding these Armenia and Azerbaijan. How? Turkey has obviously declared its open support, right? Turkey has accused Armenia of violating the ceasefire, and they have supported very openly. That has got 2 reasons. Primarily, one, the Turkey has extended support to Azerbaijan because first reason is, like, the president of Turkey, who is Erdogan, he sees himself as a new leader of the Muslims of the world. Like at the time of Ottoman Empire, Ottoman Caliph was the leader of the Muslims of the world. Likewise, he sees himself as the new leader of the world. Okay, and Turkey has been constantly providing support to Azerbaijan because of this. They also call themselves one nation, two states, because they share cultural links and like religious and cultural and this linguistic links also, because most of the Azerbaijanis speak Turkic languages. Okay, this has been a constant. This all region got politically formulated after World War II only. Okay, prior to that, this all was a uniform region. Okay, except for Armenia. Armenia was obviously dominated by Christians, but this region, Azerbaijan, even Armenia was also part of Ottoman Empire itself. Azerbaijan was a part of Ottoman Empire. even if it was not a part of Ottoman Empire, it was a part of Persia. Persia and Ottoman Empire has very strong links. Okay. Similarly, there is a strong cultural link. Like India and Pakistan might be politically not connected, but still they have cultural links dating back to like millions of years, because prior to the 1947 partition, India and Pakistan were one country. Fine. We share our language, our cultures. Okay. Turkey sees Azerbaijan and they have this one nation, two states because of cultural and historical ties. Russia has good relations with both Azerbaijani and Armenian countries. ठीक है. Armenia does not touch Russia, so it does not make itself an immediate neighbor to Russia. But after Georgia, it is Russia. So Russia sees this conflict as an opportunity also, and as a conflict that might destabilize the region. Okay. So Russia is trying to intervene. Almost all of these countries which are exerting power, there is a geopolitics at play. Fine. Russia possesses a military base in, this is a very crucial point, that Russia has very good relations with Azerbaijan. Russia has the border sharing with Azerbaijan, but still Russia possesses a military base in Armenia. Okay, and there is a military alliance with Armenia also, that is called Collective Security and Treaty Organization, CSTO. Both are members of CSTO. That means if there is an attack on Russia, Armenia will come to its help, and if there is an attack on Armenia, Russia will come to its help. Similarly, all these treaties were the reason of World War I, as we know, because all these countries were mutually engaged into treaties, like Poland and Russia and Germany and Austria and Hungary and Serbia. All these were entwined into mutual treaties of help in case of a conflict. Fine. So before the region goes into full-scale conflict, it's better to have a peace process. That's what we are looking at. Now, there's one very important and crucial point. Israel has also been helping Azerbaijan by providing it with precision attack drones. Now, this is a very important point. Israel has been constantly involved in conflict with all its Arab natures, like Egypt and Jordan and Syria, okay, and Saudi Arabia. Because all these countries are Muslim countries and they believe that Israel has occupied Palestinian land, and that is why they have been, from time and again, they have been going at war with each other. Azerbaijan is a Muslim majority dominated country. Okay. Armenia is a ethnic Christian dominated country. Why this conflict? Why this conflict as to why is Israel providing help to Azerbaijan and not to Armenia? This one point, that Israel, when Israel was formed, when Azerbaijan was formed, Azerbaijan was one of the first countries, like they in the very starting gave Israel the recognition of a country, when many countries in the world did not even recognize Israel as a country. Many countries still don't recognize Israel as a country, like Pakistan does not recognize Israel as a country. Fine. But Azerbaijan, despite being a Muslim majority country, they gave Israel the recognition. So that is like one of the historical issues. But still, Israel has been helping Azerbaijan by supplying its obviously drones and all these critical ammunition. Fine. That becomes important because we can see that how a conflict can be like a smaller conflict can be driven to a major conflict by countries who are in the business of selling arms and all this. Okay. So Israel's main export is technological and cyber warfare export and all this. So Israel has been exporting this to Azerbaijan to help it. Fine. Plus one thing, this whole conflict is very skewed in favor of Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is being supported by Turkey, Russia, Israel also. Russia is not basically supporting anyone, but still Russia is kind of trying to mediate. But still Turkey and Israel are openly supporting Azerbaijan. And Azerbaijan has its defense budget way more than Armenia. Both countries are like always in conflict, but still Azerbaijan is on a higher pedestal, on a very higher pedestal, in the sense that this conflict is very skewed in the favor of Azerbaijan. Fine. Okay. Now what India has in this whole conflict? A very cautious step India should take in whole of this conflict, because Armenia unequivocally supports India's claim on China. Kashmir. Armenia has declared its unequivocal support in favor of Kashmir and in favor of India's claim on Kashmir, whereas Azerbaijan has not supported India. It has openly supported Pakistan on the other hand. Fine. But Armenia and India signed again a friendship treaty, okay, in 1955, that in case of an armed conflict, none of them will support the aggressor of the other. Fine. And even they will come to aid to each other. Fine. But Armenia is a region. Armenia was the first country where an oil rig was digged. First oil well was digged in Armenia, Azerbaijan, in Baku. Baku is the capital of Azerbaijan. ठीक है? Azerbaijan का main export क्या है? Oil and gas. ठीक है? India की energy security के लिए that becomes important. Although we don't have Azerbaijan is not a major exporting country to India, but still Azerbaijan becomes important in the context that it might be a future provider of all these energy needs of our country, because we are more now going to shift on gas, and gas forms a major export of Azerbaijan. Now Azerbaijan is also part of INSTC, International North-South Transport Corridor. International North-South Transport Corridor is about Russia, Azerbaijan, Iran, and from sea route to India. Okay. What is this? International North-South Transport Corridor. India has been very enthusiastically promoting this. Now Azerbaijan forms a very important point in this whole. ठीक है? So Indian energy companies also, India has its investment, ONGC Videsh Limited has its investments in Azerbaijan oil and gas sector, and we have invested heavily, and we have been exploring fields there. So India is trading a very fine line. Fine. India has maintained its cautious stand, as always. Whenever there is a conflict between two people of whom neither of you dislike, what can you do? You can always choose to maintain a cautious silence, okay? Or either you can advocate peace on the basis of dialogue. That is what India has been advocating. It has called for peace and the resolution of dialogue by the two parties of the conflict. Fine. Now there are some Madrid principles. There are Madrid principles. Okay, these Madrid principles, this is a Minsk group, it's a security group, okay. Okay, it's a Minsk group, it's a security group, okay, and USA, Russia and France. USA, Russia and France have been advocating these Madrid principles. These were started in 2007. Okay. Formulation of a peace treaty between Armenia and Azerbaijan. What are Madrid principles basically? Madrid principles ask for demilitarization of whole of this Nagorno-Karabakh region, as we saw in the map. Okay, this whole Nagorno-Karabakh region between Armenia and Azerbaijan, the demilitarization of this region. Why? Because most of the territory is occupied by Armenians. Fine. And this territory, Nagorno-Karabakh region, is occupied by, this region is occupied by Azerbaijan. Okay. So what these principles ask is, first clause is demilitarization of this region. Okay. This is UN resolution on Kashmir conflict. They ask for demilitarization of the Kashmir region. But what they claim is, if first Pakistan should pull back its military from there, and then an independent referendum. Similarly, in this conflict also there is what these Madrid principles first of all seek, in a stepwise manner, they seek first demilitarization of this region, okay, and then an independent referendum in this Nagorno-Karabakh region, and then if they decide to go with Armenia, they can go with Armenia, and if they decide to go with Azerbaijan, they can go to Azerbaijan. But Azerbaijan has not been favoring these Madrid principles. And both of these countries are trying to change the status quo. Okay. So this is the resolution of this whole of the conflict. Okay, we have a prelims question. If you can try, like it's not a prelims question, I formulated it. It might come into your exams. Armenia touches the boundaries of which of the following countries? Iran, Georgia, Azerbaijan, Russia and Turkey. You can choose. The answer is B. Okay, B means 1, 2, 3 and 5. 1, 2, 3 and 5 means Armenia does not touch Russia. Fine. If you have any questions, you can put that in the comment box and we shall be dealing with all the questions at the end of the lecture. Okay, we are going to take the second important issue, Agri Reforms. There has been a widespread protest in all the country, basically in Haryana and Punjab, on the issue of this Agri Reform that the government has brought after the pandemic. Okay. Government brought 3 bills and they were made into acts that espoused a lot of criticism and a lot of praise also for the government. Why news? Because government passed 3 agri reform bills. The first is Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Protection and Facilitation 2000 Act 2020. The second is Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement and Price Assurance and Farm Services Act 2020. And the third is Amendment to Essential Commodities Act 1951, and that has become an act in 2020. Okay, the Essential Commodities Amendment Act 2020. Fine. So, Indian agriculture. What are the key issues of Indian agricultural system? India is primarily an agriculture dominated economy in the sense that the major employment goes into agriculture, but the contribution of agriculture into the GDP of the country is around 15 to 17%. Fine. But employment, it is around 45 to 50% of the workforce. And this anomaly has led to what? Agricultural inefficiencies and rural distress, because too many people are employed with very small amount of income. If that gets divided between the people, that will, like, per capita income will be very small. Okay, that's the issue. Now we'll look at this chart. Okay, in 1951, when India got 1947 we got independence, 1950 we made our republic, and this 1951 agricultural labor, total engaged in agriculture as a workforce was 69.70%. Fine. But agricultural labors as a percentage of this whole force was merely 28.104. Who are agricultural labors? Those landless laborers who work in agricultural fields, like we see laborers in construction industry and all this. Similarly, there are laborers who work in agricultural industry, like in agricultural sector. So there is a huge difference between both of this. That means, that implies that most of the people owned the land where they did their production process. Fine. But in 2011, the total engaged in agriculture workforce was 54.6% and agricultural laborers was 54.90%, even greater than this. This is quite an anomaly. This is a very rare anomaly, I would say. I don't think in any other country this exists. Prime reason is, first of all, we will look at the implication. 54.6% of, you can see that from 69.7% to 54.6%. Okay, this is not a very steep degradation in the numbers, okay, but agricultural workforce, agricultural labors has steeply increased from 1951 to, from in 1951 it was merely 28.1%, and in 2011 it was 54.9%. Yani most of the people working in agriculture today are basically agricultural labors. That means land holdings have severely decreased. Okay, land holding per capita, वैसे भी there is a fact that 86% of Indian farmers, okay, 86% of Indian farmers are either small or marginal landholders. Fine. So that means we have very small amount of land per capita and we cannot produce much over that. Okay. That means agriculture as a business or an entrepreneur like enterprise fails to generate sustainable economy. Fine. On the chart number 2 we can see indebtedness by the land holdings. Land owned, if you look about all India, average loan amount was 47,000. Now this has come down to 31,000. It's an old data. Like average loan amount per land holding was 47,000. That means a very high amount of indebtedness exists. Fine. That means already farmers are in debt, and we have already seen farmers committing suicide and all this. That is because of this, because this is average. This also comprises of the large landholders, which will like reduce this figure. But if there is a small or marginal landholder, they have high amount of debts. Fine. Now, in terms of trade, procurement, what we can see there, if you look at this chart, if you look at this chart, what the hell? Procurement and production. What is procurement? When government procures from the farmers at MSP. Okay. Procurement in Punjab was 70.62%. Okay, procurement at MSP in Punjab was 70.62% of the grains. The 70% of grains that were produced in Punjab got procured by the government itself. Whereas in West Bengal, it was only 15.44%. Fine. For rice, for wheat in Punjab, it was 38.75%, and in Bihar, it was 0.10%. You can see the skewness of MSP regime. In the west part of the country, like in Punjab and Haryana, the procurement regime is very strong. Whereas in the eastern part of the country, the procurement regime has been very weak. For rice, at least it is 15.44%, whereas West Bengal is one of the highest leading rice producer states in India. Similarly, in Bihar, you can see that the procurement by government at MSP rate was 0.10%. That means MSP regime has not been favoring all the states equally. There exists an anomaly or skewness in the MSP procurement by government. Fine. That means MSP has not been able to deliver its objective to all the country on an equal footing. Migration of farmers, we saw this during the pandemic. Reverse migration was taking place and the condition was very poor, in the sense many people died on the road itself. Out migrants from Uttar Pradesh were huge amount. Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, Rajasthan, these Bimaru states, Bihar, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Odisha, these states have been producing a lot of migrants that go to other states. Fine. Now, share of food processing GVA. Food processing is a sunrise sector in India. Fine. Now, we can see that Indian agriculture primarily produces the grains or food for its sustenance, not for business. We can see from here. In 2017, India's share in like food processing, okay, was mere 9.7%, whereas Indonesia is a very small country and they have 35.5% of their whole food being processed into processed food and that value addition takes place in their food chains, food links. Okay. In New Zealand, it was 34.3%. USA, since USA has a very big production market, okay, even 11.4% of their processing would be more than these whole combined. Even France, it had 16.2%. That means that in India, from this point, we can observe that in India, the agriculture is basically for sustenance, not for enterprise, not for business, not for like it is not very remunerative in the sense we say, fine. And from this chart, we can see that agriculture employs a lot of people, which it does not need to. If any enterprise, it is overemployed. Okay. Similarly, a high amount of loans that has led to the suicide of farmers, as we have seen in the recent history of India. It has been taking place for long term, but now we are seeing it a large. Okay. Now, what are the key issues of Indian agriculture system and Indian agriculture? When we deal with agricultural system, we deal with rural systems, fine, because agriculture obviously takes place in rural India. First is poor credit availability. Due to this, what happens is, most of the farmers in India have to take loans from the non-institutional creditors. Okay, like poor credit availability in the sense that the outreach of banks is not as strengthened as it should be. Or even if we go to the ground level, we can see that banks have been not very favorable in offering loans to farmers because of their poor credit ratings, and they know that since in India agriculture is not a business which is remunerative, okay, so offering loans to farmers will be like detrimental to the bank's credit, fine, for that. Second thing is high indebtedness. As I told, the average debt of small and marginal households is around 31,000 rupees per household. That's a huge amount. Means every small and marginal household is around 31,000 under a debt of 31,000 throughout the year. Okay, large number of landless laborers, as we saw, it went from 28%, as we saw it in the previous slide. Okay. Large number of landless laborers, it went from 28%, 27 million in 1951 to 55%, 144 million in 2011. In 2011, there were 144 million people who were landless laborers. That means this sector employs a lot of people who are basically laborers. They are not even landholders. Fine. Lack of agricultural infrastructure in rural areas. What happens if agriculture sector employs a lot of landless laborers? What is this implication? We already saw that agriculture in India is not very remunerative, fine. So how can be the wages generated to landless laborers be very remunerative? Are you getting it? Already in rural sectors, the wages are not very fine, not very up to the mark. Okay. That means they will always be in perpetual poverty. The third point is lack of agricultural infrastructure in rural areas. What are agricultural infrastructures? Like warehouses, roads, agriculture extension services. Okay, agri extension services are like research and development in agriculture. Okay, Krishi Vigyan Kendras. Okay, these Krishi Vigyan Kendras have played a very crucial role in green revolution and after that also, but they are very limited in number. Their expansion has not been done to the scale. Okay, overemployed and underutilized sector, poor efficiency. Obviously, it is overemployed that leads to its underutilization. This is a cause and this is the effect, and this is the result. Overemployed, underutilized, and that leads to poor efficiency. Poor price discovery mechanism. What is this poor price discovery mechanism? There are many mandis across the country, okay, and where farmers sell their produce, fine. But in all these mandis, there is a high price variation. Like in some mandi in Nagpur, some mandi in Delhi, they have for the same agricultural commodity. Moreover, it basically takes place more in case of vegetables because they are perishable goods, okay, and their vegetables rate is very prone to fluctuation. What happens is poor price discovery mechanism. Farmers don't have the exact idea of market. that is information skewness or information deficit, that leads them to making poor choices in case of agriculture, in case of selling their produce. The second point about this is, due to lack of rural infrastructure like warehouses, lack of availability of warehouses, they fail to store their produce for the season of deficiency. Like if a cluster of 5 villages to 10 villages had a warehouse, and all these people who otherwise go for distress sale. Distress sale means the sale at farm gate. In the case when I don't have a warehousing facility, I can't store my produce for a longer period of time, that has a risk of my produce getting wasted. Fine. In that case, what will I do? I will try to sell my produce as fast as possible, because in holding my produce will lead to spoiling of my produce, because I don't have proper warehousing facilities. In that case, what does farmer do? Farmer try to sell it to the nearest adhatiya or nearest merchant, whoever is dealing in this food produce. Since it's the production season, the production is in ample amount. Even if it's on a country level, it is scarce, still at that time what merchants do, they purchase it at a very cheaper cost. All this produce like wheat and rice, they purchase it at cheaper cost, they store it for themselves and then sell it at the time of deficiency at higher prices. So most of the remuneration from this goes to the merchants rather than the farmers. Fine. Market regulations like APMC regulations are there, that has led to localized selling of the agricultural produce, which otherwise would have fetched a better price if sold in some other market. Like if a person who is in Delhi, he wants to sell his produce in some part of UP, okay, and he sees a better price in UP, okay, then he can, if he is able to sell that produce in that part of UP from Delhi, and otherwise, and in case in Delhi he is not getting a better price, he can sell in UP. But market regulations restrict that. Means whenever there is an agriculture produce, it has to be sold in the local market, APMC markets, fine, in mandis. Lower per capita income holding, majority of farmers in India are marginal and small landholders, fine. 86% are small and marginal farmers, fine. What is the definition of small farmer? Between 1 hectare and 2 hectare of land, you will be small farmer. For marginal farmer, less than 2.5 acres, fine. These are the key issues of Indian agricultural system. The government had tried to address these. The government had tried basically to address this point, like market regulations and contract farming issues and Essential Commodities Act. We'll be dealing with those in the later part. But these are the key agricultural issues. This will be very important from mains point of view, fine. क्या हो गया इसमें? Okay. Okay, hello. Okay, I think there's a problem with the system. Okay, you guys will have to be here for a moment. It will be fine within a second. There's a problem with this system. Yeah, there's machines. But still, if you talk about, okay.
तुम लोग नहीं आओगे ना? बच्चे भाग नहीं जाते, चला जा रहे हैं। कुर्सी ज़्यादा नहीं लग रहा था, ठीक है?
कर सकते हैं ऐसा। बंद बंद कर दीजिए, मैं तो कहूँगा ऐसा कोई वो नहीं। कैसे हैंग हो जाता है यार। Okay, we'll be continuing our discussion with this Indian agricultural system and the problems being faced by it and how government is trying to address it. Fine. So these are the points. I hope you understood this. Now, what are the market concerns as reported by Standing Committee on Agriculture? This was a committee. It's a standing committee. There are two types of committees of parliament: standing committees and ad hoc committees. Standing committees they are continuous committees. Ad hoc committees are the committees which are formed for a special purpose and then dissolved. Fine. This committee was headed by Hukum Dev. He is a member of parliament, and these are the market concerns that this committee addressed. This committee reported that most APMCs have limited number of trader operatings in the market. Okay, which leads to what? The cartelization of the market. These limited number of traders, what they form is a cartel, and they control this whole selling and buying process. That leads to the poor price discovery mechanism again, because when a farmer comes to this market to sell his produce, okay, and there are only 10 traders, they will form a group and they will not let the farmer decide the fair price of his produce. Okay, like अगर सारे traders यही कहने लगे कि 10 rupees kg पे ही हम ये सब्जी खरीदेंगे, है ना? तो what options does the farmer have? Fine. So most APMCs have a limited number of traders operating, which leads to cartelization and lack of competition and reduces the competition. So that leads to the killing of the free market. And what free market does is it helps in a better and fair price discovery of a produce. Fine. Traders, commission agents, and other functionaries organize themselves into associations. There are multiple level of agents inside this mandi. If you have ever visited a mandi, you will observe that there are like a loading agent, an unloading agent, an agent who will guide you to some trader. There are many. It was actually APMCs were a good thing in the beginning because it provided the farmers to sell their produce safely and at a better prices. Like it was an open auction place where you can auction your produce and get the best of the price. But what happened was, as happens with the most of the systems which are designed to be good, but they don't function as good as they are designed to be. What happens? Cartelization, that reduces the competition, and all these form associations and do not allow easy entry of the new persons who into the market yards. Okay, even market yards are so strictly regulated by mandi authority that the entry of new persons into this market is very restricted. Okay, that leads to again killing of the competition and leading to the loss of a better price discovery mechanism. Fine. The farmer otherwise, if it was easy for everyone to enter and trade this market, there will be 50 traders. Okay, now the farmer will have better options, and forming cartels will also be difficult if there were more number of traders. Okay, so it functions like a monopolistic system where cartels decide the price and the farmer loses his control over the price of the produce. Fine. Similarly, undue deduction in the form of commission, charges and market fees. Market fees and all these things go to the agents, to the mandi. That does not account to the farmer's income, due to which what happens is the farmer has to sell at a lower price, but the consumer gets it at a higher price. That is called market distortion. The acts are highly restrictive in promotion of multiple all state, since agriculture markets are the issue lie in the state list. Okay, the state has an exclusive power of legislation on these issues. Fine. So every state tries to maximize its revenue from all these market committees. Fine. The acts APMC acts of the respective state governments. Fine. They are highly restrictive in the promotion of multiple channels of marketing, okay, such as more buyers or private selling. Every state APMC Act restricts selling outside the APMC mandi, although it is not very strictly followed in the real sense, but still all these big farmers, they go to mandis to auction, like Azadpur mandi. There's a huge mandi at Azadpur in Delhi. Okay, there will be mandis in all your respective districts also, and these mandis prevent or like they disincentivize selling outside the mandi. Okay. Okay. Now we have this Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion Facilitation Act 2020. What are the features of Act? This Act, as the central government has brought it, fine. So all this Act is it's actually a state issue, but this is a central law. Central law can always override state laws, but that will again become a issue of conflict between state and center. But center has tried to now reform this market system, and they have brought this law. Prior to that, in 2003 also, central government brought a model APMC law. Model APMC law because it was a model law that should be followed by all the states for a better realization of APMCs. It was for the reform of APMCs. But the state governments were very reluctant. They did not follow this model APMC law. They did not actually reform these APMC laws. Okay? And because these APMCs, why the states have been so reluctant in reforming this APMC acts or these mandi institution? Because the ruling parties of these states have their people in the mandi authority. That has led to politicization of mandis. Mandis were meant for like business. They were meant to be a place of business or transaction. But now they have become a place of politics, in the sense that mandi authority is primarily governed by people of political inclinations or political links, and that because all these authorities will somehow, nepotistic cause or whatever cause there is, these political people will put their people into these mandi institutions or mandi governance, and then the whole system will get politicized, and no government will try to kill its own political ambitions by killing the APMC laws. Fine. Now this act, Farmer Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act, the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce, okay, Promotion and Facilitation Act 2020. What are the features of act? The act allows intrastate and interstate trade of farmers outside, first of all, the physical premises of market yards. This is mandi, okay, as we know it, or market yard we can say. The physical premises of market yard run by committees formed under the APMC. Now every state government prohibits selling outside the premises of market yard. What this act does is, this allows people to sell outside of the market yard which were set up by state governments, fine. And other markets notified in the, either it is a APMC that has been formed by any state, or any other kind of market that has been market yard that has specifically been notified by the state government under the APMC Act. Okay. It permits the electronic trading of scheduled farmers' produce. Okay. Electronic trading, how is it going to help? Like eNAM, you must have heard about eNAM. On eNAM, you can check the price of a commodity across all the country, okay? And all this, there's a scheme of connecting all these physical APMCs through eNAMs, so that a better realization of price or price discovery could be improved. Fine. Now it permits electronic trading of, but this is a different point, you need to realize this. It permits electronic trading of scheduled farmers' produce, okay? Scheduled farmer produce, that is, what is scheduled farmer produce? The produce that has been mentioned in the state or the schedule of the APMC acts of the state. Fine. Agriculture produce regulated any state APMC act in the specified trade area. What is trade area? Like this is considered a district, and every district can be regarded as a trade area. Fine. And this is the market yard notified by state government. Every farmer, wherever he resides, he is a part of this trade area. Fine. The state government basically notifies these trade areas. It can be a district, it can be an overlap of two districts, that is not a concern. A trade area is a physical boundary, it is a physical area that has been declared as a trade, as an area for trade, okay, by the state government under the notification of APMCs. Fine. When government issues these notifications under APMC Act, they specify that this area has been declared a trade area, and the people of these trade areas cannot sell their produce okay, in this market yard, ठीक है, which is, this is trade area 2, this is trade area B, okay. These people, these farmers cannot sell their trade into this market yard. These acts जो APMC acts हैं, they prohibit this selling of the produce of one trade area to another trade areas mandi, fine. But this act permits it. It permits the electronic trading, okay, in the specified trade area. That means if there is an electronic infrastructure is available, so that there is a website, suppose like eNAM itself, I am a farmer from this region, I can sell my produce to any of the trade area within state or outside of the state, fine. Such e-trading, this is a very important point. It's also a point of major contention among the farmers. Farmers have been very like strongly protesting this point. They are saying what the point is, such e-trading platforms can be established by companies, partnership firms and societies having a PAN. What is PAN? Permanent account number, fine. PAN under IT Act 1961. Okay. Farmer producer organizations and cooperative societies. Now this is very important. Our government has been promoting farmer producer organizations very enthusiastically and also cooperative societies. Why has the government been promoting these institutions? Because the prime reasons are the smaller land holdings. Smaller land holdings, and when there's a farm there, like if there are many farmers who collaborate and collect their land, okay, and pool in their land, and they produce one thing on that land, the cost of input can be scaled down. That's called scale of economy. Whenever you do a thing on a larger scale, fine, if your business is going on a larger scale, the cost per unit or per capita reduces. That is called the economy of scale. The farmer producer organizations, what will they help in doing? They will reduce the input costs of the farming. What is one of the famous farmer producer organization or a cooperative? Amul, fine. Amul has been doing this from very early times, and they did it in the best way, fine. So farmer producer organizations and cooperative societies means companies, partnership firms, societies having PAN number under IT Act 1961, and what? Farmer producer organizations and cooperative societies as well. These all institutions can set up what? E-trading platforms. And I will tell you, we will be discussing it, why farmers are protesting these two clauses in the Act. Fine. The Act prohibits state governments from levying any market fees, cess or levy on farmers, traders and electronic trading platforms. What has the government been doing? They have like prohibited, prior to this in APMC Act, state governments levy these cesses, there are very types of cess, market fees, due to which the price of commodity naturally inflates. However, the farmer gets a very small portion of it, fine. The farmer is obviously at loss, and the consumer is also at loss. Who are benefiting? Multiple agents or multiple intermediaries, fine. What if a farmer directly gets connected to Okay. What if a farmer directly gets connected to a buyer? Fine. This is a farmer. Fine. It's an important diagram from the mains perspective. You can draw it in the linkages diagram. Fine. This is a farmer. These are various intermediaries. Okay. And this is a buyer. This is customer. Fine. If a farmer directly sells to the customer or to the buyer, these costs of intermediaries will drastically reduce and naturally reduce the price of the commodity. But what happens is, a farmer has to go to these intermediaries through APMC Act, APMC mandis, and then they sell this to the buyer. Then he tries to make profit from that. And what was of rupees 10 a kg? What is rupees 10 a kg? The customer gets it at least rupees 20 5 to 20, 30 rupees a kg. This is the margin. This is the difference. And this is creating the market distortion in Indian agricultural system, and this has led to a huge, like it's a loss. It's a loss to the economy basically. Obviously these people are making money, but that is a rent seeking behavior. Rent seeking behavior should not be encouraged in an economy. Fine. Because they are not producing anything, they are not producing anything, they are not manufacturing anything, okay, and they are still getting the benefits of all this process just because of being the intermediaries, and they are actually creating hurdles in the free market or the free market price discovery. ठीक है? So this act prohibits state governments. This act prohibits state government. This is a major point of contention again. The state governments have been telling that, they have been crying actually that this act kills the federal spirit of the Indian constitution. Fine. Because states, this act, first thing is it is in the state list. Agriculture and agriculture markets are in state list. Center is, first of all, it is making a law on the state list. That is again an attack on federal issue. Moreover, it is also prohibiting the state governments from levying any market fees. And market fees is one of the major revenue generating source for state. States का revenue जहाँ से आता है वो या तो alcohol for human consumption, market fees, okay, entertainment tax. These things are what form the the revenue of the state. Already states in India have a very poor revenue generation. Even like none of the states, like local bodies don't impose charges in rural areas, although municipalities do impose, but panchayats don't. Like the state's finances are already in a mess. Still, this act prohibits states from levying any market fees, cess or levy on farmers, traders and electronic trading. In APMC markets, in traditional APMC market, the states can levy their fees, but outside of those markets, outside that trade area, outside that APMC market, the state government cannot levy any charge. Okay? This can be understood easily like this. If this is an APMC mandi, fine. This is an APMC mandi, and this is a farmer. Okay. All the area outside this APMC mandi can be called as outside trade area. Fine. If this farmer is selling to any person outside the trade mandi, the state government cannot impose any market fees, levy, cess or charge. Okay, means the state government is not going to earn from this transaction. Okay? But if this farmer is going to sell through this APMC market, fine, to a buyer, then obviously the state government can impose their market fees. Fine. Easy to understand. Okay, what are desired benefits of the act? First of all is abolishment of monopoly. As I told, the APMC markets have monopolized this whole system of agricultural trading. And we have seen that the whole APMC system has been very much politicized. Okay, that leads to the failure of price discovery mechanism. So farmers not getting the real value of their produce, what they would otherwise get into a free market situation. Fine. Since the farmer would not be restricted to sell within the APMC Act, the government can't charge market fees. Okay, that will stop the inflation. That will stop the unnatural inflation. Okay, market fees is not a natural cause of inflation. It is an unnatural cause of inflation. What are natural causes can be? Low production can be a natural cause of inflation. If the production is very low in any year, obviously the prices will be high. But this market fees is not a natural cause of inflation. It is, again, what is this? This is market distorting. What is it creating? It's creating a market distortion. ठीक है? What is market distortion? जब कोई market fail हो जाती है, अपना natural price जो buyer और seller के बीच में establish हो सकता था, the best price, okay? एक market, free market में बहुत सारे buyers हैं, बहुत सारे sellers हैं, ठीक है? Free market में बहुत सारे buyers हैं, बहुत सारे sellers हैं. अगर बहुत सारे buyers हैं, बहुत सारे sellers हैं, तो जो seller होगा उसको best price मिल सकता है ना? ऐसे ही जो buyer होगा, he can buy at the best price. But if these buyers form a cartel and they decide that this commodity is going to sell at rupees 100, then these entities don't have much of freedom. Okay, then these entities don't have much of freedom. They will have to sell it at ₹100, which might not be the most remuneration they want, the most profitable remuneration they would have otherwise got in a free market. Fine. So market fees, so understood. Market distortion matlab when a market fails to provide the best opportunity for seller and buyer both. Fine. Which otherwise they would have in an open market scenario where there are many buyers and many sellers. Okay. So what happens is the farmers would not be restricted to sell within the APMC. The government can't charge, and that will lead to the killing of inflation. Means inflation will, obviously market fees will get added to the commodities price if it is sold in an APMC, and if it not sold in APMC market, okay, या APMC mandi, so the price will not get unnaturally inflated. Okay. Market integration is a very important thing, because through ENAM government has been trying to integrate the whole market of the country, and like even trying to connect the APMCs to these cyber infrastructure से सारी मंडीज को कनेक्ट करने की कोशिश है ना. This will bring variability in the price of the commodities down, obviously. Like there's a mandi in Nagpur, there's a mandi in Delhi, there's a mandi in suppose Allahabad. ठीक है. तो ये 3 मंडियां हैं, और यहाँ पे ड्यू टू क्यों these मंडीज आर लोकल मंडीज है ना, क्योंकि they have a trade area defined for them. Fine. These are not universal mandis. So people selling in these mandis will be local people. Fine. नागपुर में प्याज बहुत है, ठीक है, तो यहाँ पे प्याज का कॉस्ट, प्याज का प्राइस लो है, ठीक है. यहाँ पे प्याज क्यों बिकॉज प्याज लाइक अनियन इज इन अ एम्पल सप्लाई, तो ऑब्वियसली यहाँ पे प्राइसेस जो होंगे अनियन के वो लो होंगे. यानी यहाँ और यहाँ पे दिल्ली में प्याज कम है, यहाँ पे प्राइसेस हाई होंगे. यहाँ पे मान लीजिए 50 रुपीज kg है, यहाँ पे 30 रुपीज kg है. तो if I'm a farmer from this region, I would love to sell this produce into this market, right? Fine. And that will obviously reduce what? The supply deficit in this region also. Hence, this price will somehow go down to 42, 43 rupees. And this price will rise up to 42, 43 rupees. If not 42, 43, 38 at least. Okay. If we consider the same kind of variation, 50 minus 8, 42, and 30 plus 8, 48, 38. That means now the price variability has been reduced, like 42 rupees and 38 rupees. That means a uniform. See, this person having a huge amount of onion is going to sell in this market. That will compensate the need for this market to go outside. Fine, like import from, like bring from other places. And that will also help this farmer in realizing a better price. Fine. Okay, that will help in reducing the variability of commodity prices across the market, and that will also help the government in monitoring the, like in a better monitoring, in a better way government can monitor the prices of the commodities, and that is how the government can intervene at the right time. If there's a huge price difference, like यहाँ पे 50 rupees sell हो रहा है, यहाँ पे 30 rupees sell हो रहा है, तो government will not be able to judge exactly as to what is the scenario for onion in the country. Fine. क्योंकि there's a high price variation due to which government may say कि यहाँ तो inflation ज़्यादा नहीं है, but यहाँ पे है, that is a local inflation. Okay. Since the private companies also have been allowed to operate the mandis or e-trading platforms, ठीक है, private companies, partnership firms, societies, farmer producer organizations and cooperative societies, they have been allowed to set up these e-trading platforms. Fine. That will reduce political interference and reduce cartelization, because it will be like Flipkart. Everyone will be having more number of buyers and they can choose any one of them. Fine. The farmer can choose any buyer who is willing to buy his produce at the price farmer tries to determine. Fine. And that will lead to a huge amount of data being created. That will lead to a better realization of prices, and the information asymmetry, or the information that deficit that exists in the country for farmers at least, that will be reduced. Fine. I hope you understood this. Now we will go to challenges and issues. What are states saying? States are claiming that a central law on agricultural marketing would jeopardize the federal system, obviously. It's a genuine concern. However, the states have been reluctant for so many years in implementing these APMC reforms. Fine. The states could have done it better. Fine. But they have failed to, apart from a few states like Maharashtra, they have reformed their APMC laws to a greater deal. And in Bihar, abolished the APMC Act altogether. But that's another issue. Now, abolishment of market fees outside the mandis will severely impact the state's revenue. States are obviously concerned about the kind of revenue that these mandis generated, fine. And states are already facing the impact of GST implementation, है ना? अभी government को loan लेके और states को GST compensate करना पड़ा due to COVID issues, है ना? Although these are temporary, but obviously they are affecting the state's perspective in the larger run. It will become harder for the government to monitor the price of commodities whose transaction takes place outside the mandi areas. This is a concern that many people have given. Ki since the mandis were well regulated by government, the government had a control over these. At least if the government did not have the control, they could easily monitor as to what is the price of what commodity in all these mandis. Okay? The government was well prepared to deal with these price contingencies in case of inflation and all. Fine. But it will become harder for the government to monitor the price, because if there is selling and purchase going on between two entities that is not being registered on any portal or that kind of thing, that will not come into this whole scene where government can actually monitor it. Okay, the government might lack some of the control in monitoring the prices, fine, but that's not an issue. That's not I suppose will be a big issue for government. The trade areas would have a comparative advantage, as the trade areas, like anything that is outside APMC can be termed as a trade area. Okay, or the e-platforms will be termed as a trade area. The trade areas obviously will have a comparative advantage, है ना? ये क्या हुआ? ये बहुत important चीज़ है, because this happened with BSNL. The comparative advantage, fine. Let's talk about comparative advantage. BSNL had a very huge infrastructural support and infrastructure for them, but private companies excelled at telecom sector in India because of comparative advantage. Okay? BSNL lacked in many things. That is why it failed, because of lack of comparative advantage. Okay? ऐसे ही the trade areas would have a comparative advantage vis-a-vis the mandi areas. Therefore, the mandi infrastructure may collapse. State governments have been advocating that mandis have existed for a very long time, and they have actually helped in determining the fair prices of the commodities for the farmers, because they are localized, है ना? So that helps farmer to reach the mandi easily, है ना? To sell. Although it is not that easy for farmers to reach because of the lack of rural infrastructure, है ना? But still, what they say is the trade areas would have a comparative advantage, because in trade areas pe state government cannot impose any cess, levy or charge. They cannot be taxed. These transactions cannot be taxed by state government, because this act says so. But the states will obviously be taxing the mandi transactions. So mandi transactions obviously will be costly, because वहाँ पे farmer को एक cess, एक charge देना पड़ेगा to sell my own produce, है ना? तो why will I go to these APMC mandis? Why will I not go to these outside these trade areas, है ना? Farmers are also claiming that allowing private entities, now this is a major concern for farmers like Punjab and Haryana farmers. They have been advocating that this will lead to corporatization of farmers. What they are actually saying is this: कि in this beginning years there might be some help for farmers, because to scale up their opportunities, these private institutions or private bodies may set up a good platform, है ना? They will provide all the farmers a great opportunity to sell their produce. But after a point of time, when they have enough number of sellers connected to their website or to their platform, है ना? When there are enough number of sellers connected to and buyers connected to their platform, they might not offer the similar incentive as they will be offering today. Fine, because it's like corporate, you know, Uber started with a huge discount. They offered a huge discount to their customers and they offered greater wage to their drivers, but now what are they doing? They are pulling it back because it's simply unsustainable. It's not going to be sustainable. But what they now do, they have a market base. Fine. So what farmers are saying is that after these companies form a market base, they will not be having any incentive to provide farmers with fair discovery of price or all these things. Okay. So that will lead to corporatization of agriculture, and corporatization of agriculture has been fiercely resisted because that's the only sector now where corporate has not reached, and wherever there are corporate and wherever there is a battle between farmer and a corporate, the whole battle is highly skewed in favor of corporates. Fine. So these are challenges and issues. However, we should always look at all these opportunities from the perspective of enthusiasm, because this system has persisted for so long, and now a change is obviously imminent. Change has to come. That was the first bill. Okay. This is the second one. The Farmers Empowerment and Protection Agreement on Price. What is important is agreement on price. The government has been very cautious in saying that it is a contract farming bill or act. They have they have played with the words and termed it Agreement on Price Assurance and Farm Services Act. Oh, wow. This sounds beautiful. This actually. This could have been easily said the Farmers Contract Farming Act, but they avoided this word to prevent themselves getting into a controversy. But the bill at the end says that we are going to allow corporate farming from now on. Contract farming. What are the key features of the act? Okay, provides for contract farming. I had deliberately written it because it, at the end of the day, it provides for contract farming. These are the clause of the act. Okay, we have to deal with them very sincerely because all these clauses are legal terms. Okay, I have tried to at least reproduce them in a better understandable language, but still provides for contract farming. Okay, पहला term क्या है? It provides for contract farming in the sense that a buyer and a seller, okay, between buyer and a grower, basically farmer, they can enter into an agreement, okay, before sorry ठीक है, before like sowing season. Like if I'm going to produce some food, some produce, like if I'm going to produce rice or wheat, I can, before sowing of my crop or before ripening of the crop, है ना, जैसे I have a standing crop of wheat, है ना, and now I can enter into an agreement, okay, or before sowing I can enter into an agreement, okay, if a farmer and a buyer, direct. Minimum time of the contract will be 1 season for produce and 1 livestock season for livestock, okay, 1 cycle for one or production cycle for livestock. Maximum time will be 5 years. तो यहाँ पे 2 important clause आ गए, ठीक है. एक तो minimum time क्या है, 1 production cycle, है ना, और maximum time क्या है, maximum time है 5 years. यानी एक contract it cannot more than 5 years. Fine. The agreement between the buyer and seller should include, what should it include? The method of determining the price. Fine. The price of the produce, and if the price is subjected to variations. ठीक है, जैसे मान लो कि एक basic function है y is equal to ax plus b. ठीक है, x is a variable, y is an output, a is a constant, b is a constant. If the price is, what does it mean that if the price of the produce is subjected to variations, है ना? If it is subjected to variations, है ना, and if x is reduced to 0, है ना, तब भी कुछ b होना चाहिए हर वक्त, ठीक है, हर वक्त एक b जरूर होना चाहिए. That means अगर एक बेसिक एक फ्लोर प्राइस तो होना ही चाहिए, है ना, लाइक 50 रुपीज, तो इन एनी केस तो मुझे इवन if it's a very it's a season of high supply, in case अनियन की प्रोड्यूस बहुत ज़्यादा हो गई है ना, तो उसमें क्या होगा, प्राइस फॉल होगा, है ना. बट इन दैट केस गवर्नमेंट प्रोवाइड्स कि इन केस अगर ऐसा होता है तो एक फिक्स प्राइस पहले ही डिटरमाइन किया जाएगा इस क्लॉज में, इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट में. ठीक है. होता क्या है, जब ज़्यादा सप्लाई होती है, व्हेन सप्लाई बहुत इंक्रीज है तो उसका प्राइस बहुत कम रहेगा, है ना. और जब सप्लाई लो है तो डिमांड ऑब्वियसली हाई, तो डिमांड हाई, इवन इफ डिमांड रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट एंड सप्लाई लो, तो उसका प्राइस हाई हो जाएगा. इफ अगर प्राइस हाई होता है तो ठीक है, ठीक है, और नहीं तो इन वर्स्ट केस सिनेरियो एक मिनिमम फिक्स्ड प्राइस तो देना ही पड़ेगा बायर को, फार्मर को. ठीक है. यानी दिस अग्रीमेंट में, इस अग्रीमेंट में क्या है कि पहले तो मेथड ऑफ डिटरमाइनिंग द प्राइस, कि व्हाट इज द मेथड दैट यू हैव फॉलोड एट अराइविंग एट अ प्राइस. ओके, कि व्हाट शुड बी प्राइस ऑफ अनियन, वो मेथड क्या होगा वो डिटरमाइन करो. द गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट स्पेसिफाइड दिस. ठीक है. द गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट स्पेसिफाइड, that is a flaw. At least the government could have specified the principles to be followed. If they did not determine the method or the formula, but still the government could have determined, the government could have told या prescribed the principles to be followed. Like some principles can be कि last year में क्या cost थी, average cost क्या थी of production, है ना, और last year what was supply और प्राइस क्या था, एवरेज प्राइस क्या था बहुत सारी मंडीज में, उनका एग्रीगेट क्या हो सकता है. दैट कुड हैव बीन द प्रिंसिपल्स ऑफ गवर्निंग द प्राइस डिस्कवरी, बट गवर्नमेंट हैज नॉट प्रिस्क्राइब्ड इट, है ना. दे हैव एक्चुअली they have told the contracting parties to mention the method of determining the price, है ना. So this is a conflicting clause in the sense कि the farmer or if there's an individual farmer, if there's an individual farmer, he will be very like unable to understand this clause. ठीक है. And he might not be very adept with determining the price, कि मतलब क्या प्राइस कैसे डिस्कवरी होगी. In that case the buyer will have the comparative advantage. ठीक है. Even if 5 people, 10 people or 100 people are pooling in their land, है ना, still the method of price determining, है ना, इसको डिटरमाइन करने में, इसको स्पेसिफाई करने में जो प्रोड्यूसर होगा, that he will be having some problem because of his incapacity, his inability. Okay, the price of produce, and if is subjected to variations, the minimum price that has to be paid. Understood? These are important clauses. Question यहाँ से भी आ सकता है बहुत, मतलब there can be a number of questions from this, the features of the act, because it has been very important and it has aroused a lot of protest in the country. Fine. Another key feature of the act is dispute settlement. Now, why dispute settlement? Because it is a contract. Fine. Sorry, it is a contract. Contract के साथ हमेशा disputes associated होते हैं, because it's a legal contract. तो यहाँ पे disputes हो सकते हैं. Dispute settlement में क्या है? ये सारे points as it is मैंने produce किए हैं. The agreement must contain the provision for conciliation board. Fine. There should be a conciliation board. अब conciliation board is not a government entity. Fine. यहाँ पे आर्बिट्रेशन को प्रमोट करने की कोशिश की गई है एज कंपेयर टू लिटिगेशन. लिटिगेशन मीन्स कोर्ट में जाना, आर्बिट्रेशन मतलब सुलह करके समझाना. फाइन. तो द अग्रीमेंट मस्ट कंटेन द प्रोविजन फॉर कंसिलिएशन बोर्ड एंड प्रोसेस फॉर द कंसिलिएशन. फाइन. एंड देयर शुड बी अ डिफाइंड प्रोसेस फॉर द कंसिलिएशन. अब कंसिलिएशन बोर्ड कंसिलिएशन बोर्ड क्या होगा? कंसिलिएशन बोर्ड विल कंप्राइज ऑफ पीपल. ठीक है. इट विल बी, मान लो पांच लोग हैं, 10 लोगों का एक बोर्ड बना दिया. ठीक है. दिस बोर्ड विल हैव फेयर रिप्रेजेंटेशन फ्रॉम बोथ द कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग पार्टीज, बायर एंड सेलर या ग्रोवर. इन दोनों पार्टीज के, these two are contracting parties in this contract. These two contracting parties will have their representation. They will have their fair representation in this conciliation board. This conciliation board comes into action when there is a conflict over the contract. ठीक है. अगर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट पे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट हो जाता है, मान लो बायर रिफ्यूजेस टू बाई या सेलर रिफ्यूजेस टू सेल, like simplistic conflicts. In that case, who comes into action? This body. This is conciliation board. And then conciliation board, what will it try? It will try to mediate. It will try to reconcile both of the parties कि लेट्स गेट ऑन टू दीज टर्म्स एंड देन विल बी फाइन, ठीक है। तो ये 2 पॉइंट हो गए, ठीक है। Any dispute should be first brought to the conciliation board. Any dispute should be first brought to conciliation board and after that to the subdivisional magistrate. Okay, यहाँ पे बहुत conflicting points हैं. We need to understand कि ये protest के क्या reasons हैं, ठीक है। बहुत ये दोनों points बहुत important हैं. Any dispute should be first brought to the conciliation board and after that to the subdivisional magistrate. Excuse me, पानी थोड़ा दे. Any dispute should be first brought to conciliation board and after that to the subdivisional magistrate. यहाँ पे farmers are saying कि there is no judicial authority, है ना? The conflict, how can a subdivisional magistrate preside over a judicial conflict or a conflict of contract? Fine. The decision of SDM can be appealed, fine, in the appellate to be headed by the magistrate or additional magistrate. Magistrate or additional magistrate are called executive authorities, है ना? Executive magistrate is division district magistrate या collector in many states, ठीक है। Additional magistrate is the same, ठीक है। तो SDM का डिसीजन कहाँ चैलेंज किया जा सकता है? एक appellate अथॉरिटी होगी, वो appellate अथॉरिटी किसके द्वारा हेड की जाएगी? मैजिस्ट्रेट या एडिशनल मैजिस्ट्रेट के द्वारा, ठीक है। तो यहाँ पे 2 चीजें हैं. फर्स्ट इज द होल प्रोसेस इज वेरी वेग एंड नॉट वेरी क्लियर कि वो जो अपीलेट अथॉरिटी बनेगी उसके मेंबर्स के बारे में बहुत क्लियर नहीं है, ठीक है, कि उसके मेंबर्स कौन होंगे. इट इज गुड दैट इट विल बी हेडेड बाय मजिस्ट्रेट और एडिशनल मजिस्ट्रेट. यहाँ पे चांसेस ऑफ करप्शन बहुत हाई हैं. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पे डेलीगेशन ऑफ पावर है. फाइन. एंड डेलीगेशन ऑफ पावर क्रिएट्स conflicts often, ठीक है. Even if there is no corruption, since this magistrate or additional magistrate is not a judicial authority, तो इनके decision को maybe he has given the decision in good faith, but the losing party might not accept it in the way they would have otherwise accepted from a judicial authority, ठीक है. So what could have been option? कि the decision of SDM could have been challenged in high court or like that, but that would obviously again put burden on already overburdened courts, है ना. 53,000 cases Supreme Court में ही pending है. तो this is the dispute settlement mechanism. Prior to that we saw कि key features of the contract क्या होना चाहिए. अब dispute कैसे settle होगी, ठीक है. तो dispute settlement में issue क्या है? SDM और magistrate को हम अथॉरिटी कैसे बना सकते हैं किसी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट डिस्प्यूट पे सेटलमेंट करने की, ठीक है. दिस इज हाउ इट वर्क्स. नाउ टाइम पीरियड, दिस इज गुड थिंग. द टाइम पीरियड ऑफ रिजोल्यूशन हैज बीन प्रिस्क्राइब्ड 30 days, है ना. व्हेन अ टाइम पीरियड इज स्पेसिफाइड, ठीक है, तो दैट रिफ्लेक्ट्स अ गुड फेथ एंड दैट रिफ्लेक्ट्स द प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी ऑफ द सिस्टम. और जहां प्रेडिक्टेबिलिटी है वहां पे फेथ है सिस्टम में, ठीक है. पेनल्टीज कैन बी इम्पोज्ड ऑन द कॉन्ट्रावेनिंग पार्टीज. पेनल्टीज का क्लॉज है, ठीक है, लेकिन बट दीज, ठीक है, पेनल्टीज कैन बी इम्पोज्ड ऑन द कॉन्ट्रावेनिंग पार्टी, ठीक है. बट एक क्लॉज में इंपॉर्टेंट चीज, एंड दैट्स अ गुड थिंग, कि नथिंग कैन बी डन टू द लैंड ऑफ द फार्मर टू रिकवर द ड्यूज. इन केस फार्मर हैज some dues and the conflict is about dues, है ना, and farmer is guilty of not withholding those dues and not paying them, so land cannot be sold or auctioned to recover those dues, and that's a good thing, है ना. So penalties can be imposed on both of the contravening parties, but the land, there can be no penalty or the land cannot be done away with from farmer to recover the dues. This is a very good point. These are all fine, and that is how we have to learn for the point of exam, है ना, कि क्या dispute settlement में. तो from point of exam this is important कि time period क्या होना चाहिए, है ना, और appellate authority किसके द्वारा headed होगी, and that is how आजकल पेपर ऐसे आ रहा है ना. तो ये important है, ये वाले सारे clauses पढ़ लेना, क्योंकि dispute settlement has aroused a lot of protest. People have been saying कि SDM and DM should not be the appellate authority, ठीक है. Key features of the act again: farming agreement shall not be entered, okay, for the following purpose, ठीक है, for transfer including sale, lease, mortgage of land premises of the farmer, ठीक है. That means government has taken very cautious steps to ensure that the land of the farmer is not taken away. Fine. Like farming agreement में किसी प्रकार की penalty impose भी की जाएगी तो उसके land के you can't sell off the land of the farmer to recover your dues. Similarly, you cannot transfer, sale, lease, mortgage of the land premises of the farmer. ठीक है? Raising any permanent structure or making any modification on the land. ठीक है? You cannot raise, like if I pooled in some land, है ना? And I am going to have a commercial farming people coming on that land and doing farming for my company. So I cannot raise a tower or a boundary on that land without the permission of the farmer. ठीक है? And he should agree to remove such structure or restore the land to its original condition. है ना? यहाँ पे important चीज़ है कि you cannot change the land use. Land use cannot be changed. If land was being used for like farming, so you cannot change the land to a residential space. Fine. The land use cannot be changed because already the land use pattern has been very high, changing very fast in India, and most of these agricultural land are going to residential spaces. ठीक है? So in case of to provide for any such contingency, these clauses are good. These clauses are important. Fine. Once a farmer enters into a contract farming agreement, he shall be exempted from the state act. Okay. Again, state act से उसको exempt किया गया है. He is not liable to the state acts like like state cannot charge any transaction on the any tax on the transaction between the buyer and the seller. ठीक है? Essential Commodities Act will also be not applicable. Essential Commodities Act prohibits storing, है ना, where or like storing too much of. Essential Commodities Act prohibits storing like any agriculture produce in excess to like sell it in the case of deficiency to earn or to make some profit. So it will not be applicable. That means a farmer can produce and store as much as he wants. ठीक है? Even if the buyer, है ना, the buyer can also produce like buy and store for himself. He will not be persecuted under Essential Commodities Act for violating the stock limits which are imposed under Essential Commodities Act. ठीक है? This is a very important clause. Sponsor shall make, ठीक है? Sponsor shall make payment of not less than 2/3. Okay, the day the sponsor, या buyer, the day he takes the delivery, he has to make 2/3 of the payment. ठीक है? And the rest of the payment has to be made within 30 days of the purchase of the produce. Fine. Okay, let's go for the intended benefits. पहला तो है कि obviously contract farming is going to attract private sector investment. ठीक है? And it will obviously provide a level playing field for farmers to engage with like wholesalers, wholesaler aggregators, है ना, और जो लोग food processing में हैं, बहुत सारा business है, तो it will provide a level playing field. Means a farmer and like some company is producing oil, ठीक है, mustard oil, and there are 10 farmers in an area, local area, who are producing mustard. They can enter into the contract on a level playing field. ठीक है? So this will help them. ठीक है? It is intended to promote entrepreneurship in agriculture and making it a remunerative enterprise. है ना? Because agriculture is having very severe inefficiencies in the sense that it is overemployed, it is underutilized, and produces poor returns. ठीक है? Will make the farmers a part of global value chain, obviously. ठीक है? Because इसकी वजह से contract farming will aid this process of food processing business will benefit from this contract farming. This has been made keeping in view this food processing, because food processing is sunrise sector in India. ठीक है? And we saw only 11.3% of the food produced in India is processed, and food processing adds value to the food. Fine, and that will help. Food processing is going to be the sector that will be like a crucial factor in pulling people out of poverty in rural sectors. ठीक है? help in reduce overcropping of wheat and rice and in aid a diversification of crops. Obviously, the whole of the Punjab is a water deficit state. Still, it is producing rice. Fine, because of the MSP regime. Okay, I'm not advocating to end the MSP regime. It has been very helpful, but there's a skewness in MSP. There has been asymmetry in MSP information. ठीक है, क्योंकि बिहार में and बंगाल में MSP regime is very weak. ठीक है, बिहार में 0.03% for wheat and around 11-12% for around 30% for rice. ठीक है, वहीं पंजाब में 75% of the wheat produced is rice produced is procured at MSP, है ना? That is it is also already a water deficit state and still it is producing a large quantity of wheat that is depleting the water tables, है ना? So what are we doing? We are subsidizing by providing MSP regime. We are subsidizing the exploitation of water and we are promoting ill practices in agriculture. After this, maybe the corporates may help establish better. After this, what will happen? Research and extension services will improve. Corporate might try to set up their own research and facilities in rural areas on a cluster level, on a cluster basis. That will help farmers realize कि उनकी farming के लिए कौन सी चीज़ ज़्यादा बेहतर है ना? And they might wheat and rice का जो overcropping हो रहा है जिसकी वजह से quality of land is also getting degraded, है ना? जहाँ पे और crops ज़्यादा हो सकती थी in case जो water deficit areas हैं जैसे बुंदेलखंड वाला जो region है वहाँ पे pulses का production better हो सकता है. अगर वहाँ पे wheat production हो रहा था that is like wheat production फिर भी ठीक है, rice production is not going to be a good option. तो वहाँ पे corporates can set up कि हम पूरे इस region में pulses grow करेंगे, है ना? तो that will be helpful for farmers. Fine. By allowing the sale of farm produce a predetermined, हाँ, obviously risk hedging. Risk hedging is hedging against the risk, है ना? What if there is a too much supply of some produce, है ना? In that case also एक minimum base price पे खरीदना ही पड़ेगा, है ना? Can start corporate domain. Okay, challenges क्या हैं? ठीक है, challenges ये हैं कि obviously सारे वो हरियाणा and Punjab farmers are protesting because of they fear the dismantling of MSP regime. Why? MSP कब action में आता है? After production, government procures from farmer directly, ठीक है? Through FCI and all these mechanisms, NAFED also, they procure from farmer at a predetermined price, ठीक है? Like 1800 rupees per quintal, ठीक है? 1800 rupees per quintal for wheat. Suppose this is the MSP issued by government, ठीक है? यानी इससे कम पे तो तुम नहीं बेचोगे. Like मतलब this is the least price you will get from government even if there is a supply or there is oversupply in the market, ठीक है? If the price level falls below this, ठीक है? मान लो the market जो free market में है price है वो है ₹1500 rupees a quintal, ठीक है? तो you can obviously go to the government and sell it at 1800 rupees because this has become in non-remunerative, ठीक है? तो government issue करती है MSP prices, ठीक है? But what if this contract farming takes place, ठीक है? तो उसमें क्या होगा? एक predetermined pricing mechanism होगा, ठीक है? और एक base price होगा. Base price, मान लो base price ₹1200 या ₹1300 या ₹1400 है, ठीक है? एंड अगर इस पे सेल करना पड़े, है ना, इस पे सेल करना पड़े अगर फार्मर को इन केस बहुत सप्लाई हो गई वीट की मार्केट में और फार्मर को ओवर सप्लाई की वजह से जो वेरिएबल प्राइसेस था द बायर इज रिफ्यूजिंग टू बाई, यानी उनके प्राइस मेथड में ऐसा है कि अगर इस प्राइस से ऊपर जाएगा तो हम इतना देंगे, तो इसकी बजाय फार्मर विल हैव टू सेल एट दिस प्राइस बिकॉज ही हैज ऑलरेडी एंटर्ड इनटू अ लीगल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट विद दिस कंपनी. फाइन. उस केस में he cannot go and sell his produce to this person या government at 1800 rupees. Fine. He will have to sell it at 1400 rupees. तो government को क्या हुआ? Government is saying कि MSP regime exists, but you can't sell to me because you are already under a legal obligation. ठीक है? तो people are saying that government is quietly trying to dismantle this whole MSP regime. Okay? But government has denied it, and they have even increased the MSP after this whole protest thing started. Fine. Can start corporate dominance. Obviously corporates का dominance हो सकता है, and that is we need to see into the future for this कि what can happen, है ना. Determination of price के लिए कोई clear mechanism नहीं है. There could have been principles of, if not the method, the principles could have been provided. Fine. Dispute settlement does not involve the judicial authority, as we have talked about. It's an executive body, and the lack of judicial settlement will hamper or jeopardize this whole judicial process of entering into a contract. ठीक है. Sorry. Okay. This is the last topic for today. This is revised priority sector lending guidelines issued by RBI. ठीक है. What is priority sector lending? RBI is the prime authority of controlling the finances, okay, and the economy in India. RBI issues directions from time to time to the banks to channelize their credit या loans into some specific sectors that will help the economy as a whole to grow. Fine. And these sectors are agriculture. Oh, sorry. These sectors are agriculture, micro, small and medium enterprise, export credit, education, housing, social infrastructure, renewable energy. This was added recently, and others. Others, RBI can specify which ones. Fine. This is very important. Priority sector lending कई बार prelims में आया है, mains में भी आया है. This is an important topic. ठीक है. तो RBI mandate करता है कि banks जो हैं, क्यों credit क्या होता है? Banks जो होते हैं वो loan extend करते हैं. ठीक है. लोन्स से बिजनेस चलते हैं. ठीक है. बहुत सिंपल टर्म्स में, लेमन टर्म्स में, लोन से बिजनेस चलते हैं. इफ आई एम गोइंग टू स्टार्ट सम बिजनेस, आई विल नॉट इन्वेस्ट माय कैपिटल, है ना. इफ इट्स अबाउट 50 लाख 60 लाख, आई विल टेक लोन फ्रॉम गवर्नमेंट विच आई विल पे बैक व्हेन आई अर्न प्रॉफिट. ठीक है. नो वन स्टार्ट ऑल दिस बिजनेस फ्रॉम देयर ओन इन्वेस्टमेंट. इतना क्यों? क्योंकि रिस्क हाई है ना, चांसेस ऑफ फेलियर्स भी हाई हैं, और इतना कैपिटल होना भी मुश्किल है. ठीक है. तो लोग क्या करते हैं? लोन्स लेते हैं. बट बैंक्स के पास इंसेंटिव किसको है लोन प्रोवाइड करने का? बैंक्स हैव एन इंसेंटिव टू प्रोवाइड लोन्स टू द पीपल हु आर गोइंग टू रिटर्न बैक, नॉट लाइक माल्या. ठीक है. ऑल्दो बैंक्स प्रोवाइडेड देम, बट स्टिल दैट वाज फाइनेंशियल फ्रॉड. खैर, तो बैंक्स के पास इंसेंटिव किसे है लोन प्रोवाइड करने का? जिसका क्रेडिट रेटिंग अच्छा हो. किसका? जिसकी क्रेडिट रेटिंग बेटर हो. क्रेडिट रेटिंग किसकी बेहतर होगी? जिसके पास पहले से कैपिटल है. जिसके पास पहले से कैपिटल है वो लोन क्यों लेगा? Why will he not invest his own? ठीक है. तो अगर सारा लोन इन लोगों को चला जाएगा जिनके पास पहले से ही कैपिटल है ना, तो जो वीकर सेक्शंस ऑफ सोसाइटी है, ठीक है ना, वीकर सेक्शंस ऑफ सोसाइटी है, दे विल बी इग्नोर्ड इन द होल इकोनॉमिक प्रोसेस. ठीक है. And that will hamper the economy itself. That will obviously create inequalities and all these things. ठीक है. तो loans को channelize करने का काम कौन करता है? Who controls all these things? RBI. Fine. कि RBI controls this loans. Although RBI does not issue interest rates on which loans has to be issued. ठीक है. Interest rate issue नहीं करता है RBI. RBI issue करता है guidelines कि आपको अपने total credit का, आप the amount of credit you are extending, it issues guidelines to banks कि the amount of credit you are extending, like 40,000 crore rupees अगर आपका total credit है मार्केट में, है ना, तो इसका कितना परसेंट आपको इन सेक्टर्स में देना होगा. दैट इज कॉल्ड प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग. ठीक है. अब ये कौन से सेक्टर? एग्रीकल्चर इज ऑलरेडी एलिंग सेक्टर. एमएसएमई एलिंग सेक्टर. एक्सपोर्ट क्रेडिट रिस्की. एजुकेशन कोई देना नहीं चाहता. हाउसिंग इज लाइक ठीक है. सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, हाउसिंग में भी ओनली दोज पीपल गेट लोन्स इजीली हु हैव अ गुड क्रेडिट रेटिंग. सोशल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर लाइक स्कूल्स, हॉस्पिटल्स, ऑल दिस थिंग्स. ठीक है. रिन्यूएबल एनर्जी, This is a growing field, है ना. Banks will easily extend loans if it is about solar panels. Fine. तो इन सेक्टर्स का क्रेडिट जो लिक्विडिटी है वो मेंटेन रहे या क्रेडिट अवेलेबिलिटी मेंटेन रहे, इसलिए गवर्नमेंट क्या कहती है कि यू विल हैव टू एक्सटेंड अ सर्टेन पार्ट ऑफ योर क्रेडिट टू दीज सेक्टर्स. फाइन. दैट इज कॉल्ड प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग. यानी these sectors have been declared as priority sectors for the economy. Why? These sectors first of all employ a large amount of people, है ना. Means change into these sectors is going to change the foundation of the economy. Fine. So it's important that the loans that are available should not only go to the big corporates, that they should always also go to these weaker sections or these important sections for the economy. तो इसके लिए टाइम टू टाइम गवर्नमेंट आरबीआई जो है वो रिवाइज करती रहती है अपने गाइडलाइंस को. ठीक है. तो दे हैव रिवाइज्ड इट अगेन आफ्टर कोविड एंड पैंडेमिक एंड आफ्टर मच ऑफ डेलिब्रेशन, है ना. दे हैव इशूड. दिस इज अ चार्ट विच आई टुक फ्रॉम आरबीआई वेबसाइट. ठीक है. अब विच आर द बैंक्स जिन पे ये नॉर्म्स एप्लीकेबल हैं. ठीक है. विच आर दीज बैंक्स, विच आर दीज बैंक्स. कमर्शियल बैंक्स में रीजनल रूरल बैंक्स, स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक, लोकल एरिया बैंक. ठीक है. अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स भी इसमें इंक्लूडेड है. दिस इज अ वेरी क्वाइट इजी क्वेश्चन दैट माइट कम्स इनटू प्रीलिम्स. ठीक है. कि विच पीएसएल नॉर्म्स आर एप्लीकेबल ऑन विच. ठीक है. इसमें अगर नॉन बैंकिंग फाइनेंशियल कॉर्पोरेशन भी ऐड कर सकता है ना, तो दैट विल नॉट बी एन एंटिटी जिसपे पीएसएल नॉर्म्स एप्लीकेबल हो. ठीक है. कैटेगरीज क्या है टोटल प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग की. डोंट लुक एट दिस वन फर्स्ट. ठीक है. ये डोमेस्टिक शेड्यूल्ड कमर्शियल बैंक्स. व्हाट आर शेड्यूल्ड कमर्शियल बैंक्स? आरबीआई बैंकिंग रेगुलेशन एक्ट का शेड्यूल है. उस शेड्यूल में बहुत सारे बैंक्स के नाम लिखे हुए हैं. उसी वो जो नाम है वही सारे शेड्यूल्ड कमर्शियल बैंक्स हो जाएंगे. ठीक है. एक्सक्लूडिंग रीजनल रूरल बैंक्स एंड स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स. ठीक है. एंड फॉरेन बैंक्स विद 20 ब्रांचेस एंड अबव. If a foreign banking entity that is operating in India like Citibank, है ना, Deutsche Welle और ऐसे Royal Bank of Scotland, HSBC, if these banks are operating in India and they have more than 20 branches, ठीक है, और बाकी शेड्यूल्ड कमर्शियल बैंक जो डोमेस्टिक हैं उनके लिए क्या है टोटल प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर लेंडिंग 40% ऑफ एडजस्टेड नेट बैंक क्रेडिट. द अमाउंट ऑफ क्रेडिट द बैंक हैज एक्सटेंडेड. फाइन. उसका 40% जो है दे हैव टू सेट अपार्ट फॉर प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर. द 8 सेक्टर्स वी सॉ. ठीक है. आरबीआई फ्रॉम टाइम टू टाइम रिवाइजेस की कौन से प्रायोरिटी सेक्टर होंगे कौन से नहीं होंगे. फाइन. मींस आरबीआई हैज कंप्लीट क्रेडिट कंट्रोल ओवर दिस. फॉरेन बैंक्स विद लेस देन 20 ब्रांचेस 40% of adjusted net bank credit equivalent, whichever is higher to be achieved in a phased manner by 2020. It was actually started way back. Now they have tried to achieve it in phased manner. ठीक है. पहले it was less, it was 20%, फिर 30% हुआ, 25% हुआ, फिर 30 and now it is 40%. ठीक है. अब जो 8 sectors हैं उनका sectoral division भी है. ठीक है. That is not very important to us, but we can have a look. Agriculture को 18% ANBC मतलब adjusted net banking credit. ठीक है. Off balance sheet whichever is high. 18% of the total loan the bank extends. ठीक है. उसका पहले 40,000 crore इज मान लो ANBC. crore is ANBC. ANBC means the total credit the bank has extended. Like it is, for example, if it is SBI, है ना, very easy to understand. SBI का total credit 40,000 crores है अगर पूरे मार्केट में. उसका पहले 40% निकाल लो, वो हो गया तुम्हारा 40%. PSL lending है ना, यानी 16,000 करोड़ के अराउंड आ जाएगा. ठीक है. अब हाँ, अब 16,000 करोड़ जो होगा ये SBI का PSL लेंडिंग का टारगेट है. SBI हैज टू एटलीस्ट ऑफर दिस अमाउंट टू दीज 8 सेक्टर्स. अब उसका 18% निकाल लो, वो कम से कम तुम्हें एग्रीकल्चर को देना है. ठीक है. और इस 16,000 करोड़ का ऐसे कर करके सेक्टोरल डिवीजन है कि कौन से सेक्टर को कितना लोन एक्सपोजर देना है. ठीक है. एंड दीज नॉर्म्स आर नॉट एप्लीकेबल ऑन फॉरेन बैंक्स विद लेस देन 20 ब्रांचेस. अब इसमें ऑल शेड्यूल कमर्शियल बैंक्स एंड फॉरेन बैंक्स वही, ठीक है. स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स हैव टू, सॉरी, ठीक है. स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स हैव टू extend 75% of their loan small finance bank and regional rural banks and cooperative banks have to extend 75% of their total credit into PSL sector. ठीक है. शेड्यूल कमर्शियल बैंक्स और फॉरेन एंटिटीज विद मोर देन 20 ब्रांचेस को क्या करना है, 40%. और बाकी कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स, स्मॉल फाइनेंसिंग बैंक, रीजनल रूरल बैंक्स, इनको क्या करना है, 75% अपना लोन एक्सटेंड करना है. किसको, PSL को. टोटल PSL टारगेट फॉर अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स विल आल्सो बी, दिस हैज बीन इंपॉर्टेंट, अर्बन कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स को भी अब इंक्लूड कर लिया गया है. 40% से कितना हो गया है, 75% इनका भी हो गया है. लाइक 75% इन लोगों का है, RRBs और कोऑपरेटिव बैंक्स का, स्मॉल फाइनेंस बैंक्स का. एंड नाउ मार्च 2024 तक इसको 75% करना है. टू इंश्योर द कंप्लायंस, अब इसको कंप्लायंस चेक करने के लिए क्वार्टरली बेसिस पे इसका मॉनिटरिंग करती है RBI. ठीक है, उनकी बैलेंस शीट को चेक करती है और देखती है कि हाउ मच ऑफ लोन हैव यू एक्सटेंडेड टू दीज पीपल इन वीकर सेक्शंस या द सेक्टर्स दैट RBI हैज टोल्ड. व्हाट इफ अ बैंक फॉल्स ऑफ इट्स लेंडिंग रेट. ठीक है, व्हाट इफ अ बैंक फॉल्स शॉर्ट ऑफ इट्स लेंडिंग रेट. तो क्या होगा, इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है कि अगर मान लो SBI अपने 16,000 करोड़ का जो टारगेट है वो अचीव नहीं कर पाई, 12,000 करोड़ अचीव कर पाई, तो जो 4,000 करोड़ है उसको जमा कराने होंगे किसमें, RIDF में, रूरल इन्वेस्टमेंट डेवलपमेंट फंड. ठीक है, इट इज ऑपरेटेड बाय नाबार्ड. व्हाट इज नाबार्ड, नेशनल एग्रीकल्चर बैंक फॉर रूरल डेवलपमेंट. ठीक है, NHB, SIDB, मुद्रा. एज RBI विल टेल कि आपको ये कहाँ कहाँ पैसे, आपको जो आपका जो टारगेट, इफ यू हैव मिस्ड योर टारगेट, you either you can deposit the remaining amount in RIDF. ठीक है, या you can also use this PSLC mechanism under priority sector lending certificates mechanism. It's like a trading. If one bank, consider for example PNB, और PNB तो गायब है. ठीक है, if for example if a bank RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, and SBI, there are two banks. ठीक है, तो obviously SBI will achieve its priority sector lending target, RBS will fail to achieve. क्यों, क्योंकि Royal Bank of Scotland बहुत ही मतलब चुनिंदा कस्टमर्स को सर्व करता है. ठीक है, and they are primarily from urban areas or like corporate. If it fails, मान लो इसको 10,000 करोड़ रुपीस का इसका टारगेट था. ठीक है, and it lent only 5,000 crore rupees. What it can do is, it can, since RBI has achieved its target, ठीक है, since RBI achieved its target, yeah, even if it has not, this bank can purchase from this bank PSLC, these certificates certify that yes, मैंने जमा तो नहीं कराया इसमें पैसे, है ना, लेकिन जो मेरा रिमेनिंग अमाउंट था मैंने उसके PSLC खरीद लिए हैं इस बैंक से, जिस बैंक ने पहले ही अपना टारगेट अचीव कर लिया है. फाइन. तो SBI जो अपना टारगेट अचीव कर लेगा, देन इट विल बिकम एलिजिबल टू सेल PSLCs. ठीक है, तो PSLCs पे सेल करके SBI कुछ अर्न भी कर सकता है फिर चाहे तो. ठीक है, दिस एनेबल बैंक्स टू अचीव द PSL टारगेट एंड सब टारगेट्स बाय परचेज ऑफ दीज इंस्ट्रूमेंट इन इवेंट ऑफ शॉर्टफॉल. फाइन. इट्स लाइक कार्बन ट्रेडिंग क्योटो प्रोटोकॉल के अंदर. फाइन. नाउ व्हाट आर द रिविजन्स, ये गाइडलाइंस. ठीक है, यूके सिन्हा कमेटी है ना, MSME पे, एंड MK जैन इंटरनेट लेड इंटरनल वर्किंग ग्रुप रिव्यू ऑन एग्रीकल्चर क्रेडिट. ठीक है, न्यू कैटेगरीज इंक्लूडेड, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, ये नोट कर लेना, ये इंपॉर्टेंट है. कौन कौन सी कमिटीज हैं पूछ लेता है किसी एग्जाम में. न्यू कैटेगरीज इंक्लूडेड स्टार्टअप्स को बैंक फाइनेंस अवेलेबल कराना अप टू 50 करोड़, एटलीस्ट 50 करोड़ तुम्हें स्टार्टअप्स को देना होगा सो दैट दे कैन हैव देयर बैंक फाइनेंस. स्टार्टअप्स नीड व्हाट, फंडिंग के लिए डेट ले सकते हैं, लोन ले सकते हैं, या तो वेंचर कैपिटलिस्ट फंड या एंजल फंड, है ना, उसके लिए। अब लोन्स टू फार्मर्स बोथ फॉर इंस्टॉलेशन ऑफ सोलर पावर प्लांट्स, फॉर सोलराइजेशन ऑफ ग्रिड कनेक्टेड एग्रीकल्चरल पंप्स, कुसुम स्कीम, रिलेट दिस टू कुसुम स्कीम, प्लीज रीड इट। ठीक है, कुसुम स्कीम में क्या था कि सब्सिडाइज्ड ग्रिड कनेक्टेड सोलर पावर प्लांट्स फार्मर्स को प्रोवाइड किए गए थे। अब वही उसी को लिए लोन्स टू फार्मर्स, ठीक है। अब सी देयर इज एन इंटरलिंकेज, है ना, कुसुम के लिए सब्सिडाइज्ड, पहले सब्सिडाइज किया, है ना, लेकिन कुछ अमाउंट फार्मर को इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा, तो क्या किया, जो अमाउंट इन्वेस्ट करना पड़ेगा उसको लोन के फॉर्म में दे रहा है ना, इट्स गुड। फॉर सेटिंग अप कॉम्प्रेस्ड बायोगैस प्लांट्स, ये 3 नई कैटेगरीज इंक्लूड हुई हैं, ठीक है। एंड हायर वेटेज टू आइडेंटिफाइड डिस्ट्रिक्ट, अब नाउ दोज डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स हैव बीन आइडेंटिफाइड वेयर PSL targets are missing, where banks are constantly missing their PSL target, ठीक है। क्यों, क्योंकि SBI का हेड क्वार्टर जो है वो डील करता है अपने PSL टारगेट्स में, ठीक है। इट विल आस्क इट्स बैंक्स टू अचीव इट थ्रू लाइक लोनिंग दिस, बट उसकी वजह से क्या हुआ कि कंट्री में कुछ डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स जो हैं दे रिमेंड वीकर, लाइक SBI का 50,000 करोड़ रुपीस का अगर टारगेट था, तो कुछ जिलों में ही, मतलब कंट्री के कुछ जो अफ्लुएंट पार्ट्स हैं वहीं पे इसने अपना टारगेट अचीव कर लिया, ठीक है। तो इस 50,000 करोड़ का यूनिफॉर्म डिवीजन नहीं हो पाया अक्रॉस द कंट्री, ठीक है। तो अब जिन डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स में ये टारगेट नहीं पहुंचा, मतलब ये फंड नहीं पहुंचा है, दिस इज फॉर दीज डिस्ट्रिक्ट्स, ठीक है। दीज districts will be identified, and while devising their PSL lending norms, they will have to take into consideration these districts, ठीक है। The target limit for small and marginal farmers and weaker sections to be increased in a phased manner, fine, it is evident. Loan limit for renewable energy doubled, this is important, ठीक है। Credit for health infrastructure has been doubled, obviously this is also important because of Ayushman Bharat mission, ठीक है। These all schemes are somehow interconnected. Government does not work in silos. Government works in synchronism with too many things, ठीक है। तो it's good if many things are linked together. They are, or because they cannot work in silos. Okay, that is all for the day. Thank you.